Now, Shantae Nicole calls him Engineer Bob, but we know him as Dr. Marcus Smith. We're right here in his beautiful home in Farmington Hills, Michigan. So we want to welcome.
He said Smith.
Oh, shit.
Oh, man. I just wanted to do that before we got too far into it, man. It's all right, man.
Okay, here's the line, and here's Ron.
It's the Ron Todd Show.
Pastoral.
It's the Ron Todd Show.
Oh, y'all got it.
It's the Ron Todd Show. You are now tuned in to the Ron Todd Show. Oh! It's the Ron Todd Show.
Go have several seats.
It's the Ron Todd Show.
Are they saved
Or no? It's the Ron Todd Show. You are now tuned in to the Ron Todd Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Ron Todd Show. I'm super excited because today we are going behind the scenes with somebody that you don't hear from as much, but they work behind the scenes at the Ron Todd Show. Now, Shantae Nicole calls him Engineer Bob, but we know him as Dr. Marcus Cylar. What's going on, Dr. Cylar?
How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for allowing us to be right here in your home. And I'm super excited because today the people really get to see and understand who you are. You know, a lot of times they don't really know what goes on and what you do for our show, but he's actually our engineer. So he's the one that makes sure that you guys can hear us and that all the levels are right. But he's so much more than just an engineer. And we get a chance to dig into that today. So, Dr. Cylar, we're excited because now we know that you are a pastor. You are a pastor and that you pastored the church for about 5 years, correct?
Yes, I pastored one church in Windsor, Ontario, across the border in Canada. So I pastored over there for 4 years, and then I pastored a church in Flint, Michigan for a year. Yeah.
Oh, that is absolutely phenomenal. Now, we want to kind of go back in time a little bit because we want to know, how did you get into pastoring?
Okay. Well, it all starts, I would guess, around 2001. I was 19 when I accepted my call to preach the gospel. And at the age of 19, I was actually a sophomore at Morehouse College, and I was studying to be an electrical engineer. And
wow,
you know, because it was always my dream to be an engineer. I don't know if you're familiar with DAPSEP, DAPSEP program. Yeah, I was in DAPSEP all the way through middle school, through high school. You know, so that was always something that I wanted to do. And so, you know, when I accepted my call my sophomore year, you know. I didn't really wrestle with the call as much as you might hear some people do, you know, because when I hear from God, I know I hear from God.
Yeah.
My issue was, one of my main issues was just the fact that, do you want me to stay in this major that I'm in? Because this is electrical engineering, you know, this is so different from, you know, what people who usually go into ministry would major in when they're in school, you know what I'm saying? So I really struggled with that. But God said, you know, just stay in it. I'm going to use you where you are. You know, the harvest was plentiful as far as, you know, just even being able to minister to people, you know what I'm saying, who are in my major. You know, because there are a lot of people in the math and the sciences and engineering and technology. They don't know Jesus. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, you know, we worship Christ, but they worship the scientific method. They worship technology, and they worship what they can see and what they can put their hands on rather than... You know, rather than having faith that there's something that they can't see or someone that they can't see who created everything that you hold on to so tightly, you know. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal. So tell us about how you got to your first church you began pastoring.
Well, after I finished undergrad, I was 22 going on 23, and so I entered seminary. And I entered seminary in 2006, Ashland Theological Seminary, the Detroit campus, which is actually here in Southfield. And so I was 2 years in to my seminary journey there, and then God called me to pastor out in Windsor. Wow. And so I was going into my last year in seminary to get my Master's of Divinity. Wonderful. And then God called me to be out there, and so I was out there for 4 years. While I was, I finished my master's, and then I said I was going to take 3 years off before I did any more schooling. So, you know, I was just out there doing the work of the Lord and just, doing what He called me to do. You know, and it was interesting. I don't know how many people I've told this story to, but when I got the call to pastoral ministry, this was 2008. My wife and I had just been married about 2 months.
Wow.
And so we were at the movies one night, just chilling, just kicking it. And I got a couple phone calls from the same number. It was an area code I'd never seen before. And so I looked at it, and so they called twice, and then I think they left me a voicemail and they left me a text. So I was like, wow, when I get home, I'm going to check it. And so when I checked it, it was the position of a presiding elder.
Wow.
In Canada. I know in the Apostolic Church that would be like the district elder or something like that. Or the Kojic Church would be like the jurisdictional superintendent or something like that. Yeah, so he called me and he said, Reverend Cylar, I know you don't know me, but I'm a presiding elder in Canada, and I've heard that a lot of people have been recommending you because I went around and I asked a lot of my friends, I need somebody who's faithful. I need somebody who can preach the word. I need somebody who is excited about ministry, who's excited about growing ministry, and someone who will be excited about coming over and really getting to work and doing the work of ministry. And I'm going around and I'm doing this myself because I've had some people to come in to this church before and they weren't really serious about ministry. So I need somebody serious. And every time that I asked somebody, your name kept coming up. And so I'm extending the offer to you. So, my wife and I prayed about it. We accepted it. We went over there. And it was a great journey over there. They had that church before I got there in 2008. The previous 10 years from 98 to 08, I think they went through 6 different pastors within a 10-year period before I got there, and they had also gone through a church merger with another AME church that was across town in Windsor, and when that merger took place, most of those people who came from that church, they left, and so the church was on the verge of closing, and there was just a lot going on, but God sent us there. He had us to do a great work, and very proud of what we were able to do over there, and the lives that we were able to touch while we were there. So that was definitely a great experience. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then after Windsor, and by the way, I have to say this, and I don't mean to jump all over the place, but you now have a doctorate.
Yes.
And that's in theology as well, right?
It's Doctor of Ministry.
A ministry. Yeah. That is phenomenal, and that's such a huge accomplishment. So we want to make sure that everybody knows that because, and I try my best every time I get a chance, I say Dr. Cylar, because when you made that type of accomplishment, you deserve, you earned the right to be called doctor.
I appreciate it. So,
Dr. Cylar, from Windsor, where did you go from there?
Well, actually, I said I was over there 4 years. To begin my 4th year, what happened was there were a lot of things that were happening, that were taking place at one time. There were a number of crises that were taking place all across the Canadian conference. When I say conference, there were 9 churches, AME churches in Canada, spread out between the provinces of Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. And so we were all together, the Canadian conference. So there was a lot of different crises that were happening. The previous presiding elder, the one who called me to go over there, he had taken almost deathly ill. He praise God, he came out of it. He survived, and we praise God for that. But he was really sick for about 2 entire years. And so I got the call from the bishop that he wanted me to be the presiding elder. And this was at the age of 29. So I was definitely the youngest in the entire AME church to be in that position. And so, God had us to do some great things in that 1 year. But then the bishop, called me in after that year, and he said, "You know what? I feel the Lord telling me to take you higher, and higher not necessarily in position, but just higher in as far as the responsibility, because he was gonna put me in a bigger church, because I was still pastoring while I was presiding elder, and so he was gonna put me in a bigger church, which was gonna be more responsibility, but and then quite frankly, it was gonna pay more as well, because I had a second child that was on the way, and he wanted to bless our family by elevating me to another position. So he brought me back, into Michigan and had assigned me to the church in Flint. So so that's how the transition took place. Yeah.
Awesome. So how long did you stay in Flint?
I stayed there 1 year. The reason why that year was so short was a lot of the reason why, and I know we're going to get into that. That was a lot of the reason why I wrote the book that I wrote. There were just so many challenges that took place, and I experienced burnout in a very real and painful way while I was there, just because of just all the heat that I was getting from all different directions.
Wow.
While I was there for a year. And looking back on everything that happened, I can see, and there were a lot of signs that there were a lot of people who just didn't want me there. And
Wow.
and I want to be clear, while we're doing this, I want to be clear. There were a lot of great people in Flint. There's still people there who were our former members that we still talk to today. That still, we go to their birthday parties. They come to our kids' parties and things like that. Whenever we need them, they step up. And you've met a few of them.
Yeah.
They're great people. There were a lot of great people over there, but then there were also some people who meant us harm. So
Wow.
we knew that it was time for us to exit after just that 1 year.
Wow. So, and at that point, that ended your time pastoring a church. So that brings us to your phenomenal book here called Rebuild, a 12-part framework for rejuvenating and restoring the burnt out pastor. Tell us about this book.
This book is a story of what I went through during that tumultuous 1 year pastoring in Flint. And it was a story of the journey that God took me through to get me past that, to get me to a place of healing and reconciliation in my own mind and in my spirit from what I had been through there. I knew, even when I was going through the experience, I knew that I was going to write a book about this one day. And the title, Rebuild, it just comes from the fact that when you experience burnout, and not just in pastoral ministry, but in anything, you get to a point where that what you loved to do at one point, and this is how I define burnout, and some people might define it differently, but when you get to a point where that what you love to do now becomes painful, now becomes something that you can no longer handle, and then you know that you need to step away. And but when you step away specifically from pastoral ministry, it's a whole different thing, because some people, I think more than a lot of other professions, when you're a pastor, when you step away from that thing for any reason or whatever, there's a lot of failure, a lot of feelings of failure that are associated with that. Your own feelings of failure, and then that which people put on you. People feel like you done left God.
Right.
You've left the Christian faith altogether. You left the church. You just and then there are other people who feel like at the church in particular, they feel like you quit on them.
Right.
And so that's a difficult thing, because like I said, we had a lot of people who loved us over there, and we loved them. And some of them, it's not like they held it personally against us, because we still talk to them. But it's definitely hard not to feel like you've been quit on.
Sure.
When you resign. Now, there are a lot of other details that I don't necessarily need to get into, but there were some other details surrounding that decision that I made, that basically the decision was going to be made for me anyway, whether I had resigned or not. But it's difficult, because people, when you're called to pastor, when you're called to shepherd God's people, and for whatever reason you experience something like burnout, then in your mind you feel like it makes God look bad or something like that, because and people are going to feel like, well, did you miss God?
Right.
And so those feelings are really tough to deal with, and that's something that you have to rebuild your spirit from and rebuild your self-confidence from, because it's just such a painful experience. And so I wanted to be able to write something, because as I was going through the process of getting better, God was laying out for me, this framework for really building myself back up. And I knew that I didn't want to just keep it to myself. I knew that I had to share with other people so they could be blessed.
Sure.
As well.
So who would you say would benefit from this book?
I think there are specifically two audiences, I think, with this book. One, the primary audience is pastors who have experienced burnout, who've gone through exactly what I've been through. For them to know that there's a way out as far as, you can get better. Life does continue after this. Life is not over. God is not through with you yet. And there is still ministry for you. Whether you jump back into pastoral ministry one day or not, God still has a plan for your life. So that's one audience. The other audience, and this audience kind of really just happened organically. You know what I'm saying? Because this wasn't really something that I planned so much when I started writing the book. But there's a section at the end of every chapter where they're like devotional points. There's some things that you read, and there's some things that you reflect on.
Sure.
And then I have a prayer at the end of every chapter. And there's two parts to it. It's my prayer that I literally wrote out for each chapter for pastors who have either experienced burnout or for pastors who are reading this and are on the verge of burning out and just haven't yet. There's my prayer for them in there. But then there's also a section, and I put a hashtag on it, pray for your pastor. Because if you put the hashtag in all throughout social media, you'll see different posts about statistics about burnout, and you'll see different posts about how pastors are really need the support of the people and the prayers of the people. And so the hashtag pray for your pastor, in every chapter there are specific areas where people may not know that their pastor is dealing with certain things and certain difficulties, and if they knew what the pastor went through, if they knew how their pastor was suffering in different areas or was vulnerable in certain areas, then I think most people would make a more concerted effort to pray for the man and woman of God, because it's really easy to take that position for granted. You know what I'm saying? Just like anything else, it's really easy to take that for granted. But when you try to put yourself in his or her shoes and think about your pastor, then that can really begin to help you form a better conception of what it means to be a church member and of what it means to be supportive of your pastor. Yeah. And of what it means also to be real with your pastor. I don't know necessarily if I can speak for all pastors, but I can speak for me personally. In my pastoral ministry, I appreciated those people who had the courage to set an appointment and come into my office and tell me, Pastor, I have a problem with what you did or what you said here. We might not agree or whatever, and just because you said it doesn't mean that necessarily I'm going to change all the time.
Right.
Because, I get my direction from God. Right. But I hear what you're saying. I'm sensitive to it. And I'm going to go to God about it. And if I do need to make a change in myself, I can do that.
Right.
Well, a lot of people won't do that. A lot of people will go and start gossiping. And they will go and get with their friends and talk about what pastor is or is not doing.
Right.
And so the other audience, to answer your question, the other audience for this book is lay people, the parishioners, so they can really get a better appreciation for that pastor and what they go through and the profession, the vocation of pastoral ministry, so that they can be better church members, so they can better support their pastors, and pastors who have the support of their people are less likely to burn out. They're more likely to have successful ministries, and their churches can be more successful as well. So those are kind of the two audiences that really came out of what I wrote.
Wow. So how can people purchase this book? Where can they get it?
They can purchase it right now on Amazon. If you just look, you just type my name in and you type Rebuild in as well. You'll see the book there. It's in the Create Space Marketplace as well, because I self-published the book. They can also go to rebuildthebook.com, and where they can find more information about what the book is about. There's also a link to purchase on there as well. I'm currently working on an audiobook as we speak. So after I finish recording that, I'm going to make some deals available for purchase, and I will definitely I'll definitely apprise people of that on my social media, different accounts and things like that. So
Yeah, tell them how they can get you on social media.
On Twitter, on Snapchat, on Instagram, and on my Facebook business page. I'm Pastor Cylar.
All right.
I'm also Marcus A. Cylar on LinkedIn, because it's hard to keep track.
Oh, yeah.
LinkedIn, on Google Plus, and typically my Facebook profile page, I typically reserve that for people I know, but I'm considering opening that up. So if you friend me on my Facebook personal page at Marcus A. Cylar, you might find me there as well. So.
Awesome. Listen, I need you guys to bombard Amazon and make sure you get this book, Rebuild. So it's not just for the pastors, but it's for the lay members as well. There's something in this book for everybody. So make sure you guys get online and purchase this book. Listen, those people that you may have forgotten to get a Christmas gift for, it's never too late. You still have time. You get online today and make sure you purchase this great book by Dr. Marcus Cylar. It's called Rebuild, and I believe that it will rebuild you. Listen, thank you so much for taking this time with us.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Yes,
Listen,
sir.
you guys get to see the engineer. Listen, and you also get to hear about his phenomenal book. Listen, I'm so excited. Again, make sure you go to Amazon today, purchase Rebuild by Dr. Marcus Cylar. This is the end of our segment today. Listen, as always, remember, go after what God has for you. We love you for free, and we'll talk to you next week on The Ron Todd Show.
Okay, here's the line, and here's Ron.
It's the Ron Todd Show. Pastoral. It's the Ron Todd Show.
All y'all got issues.
It's the Ron Todd Show. You are now tuned in to the Ron Todd Show. Oh, it's the